How you doing? Yeah, right. He only all killed me already. I'm going to talk about the metamorphic spiritual body. The spiritual metamorphic body in the spiritual universe called Vaikuntha, which, if you know your Srimad Bhagavatam, they say it hasn't been spoken enough about the Vaikuntha planets. So when I talk about what I'm about to talk about, this is where I'm coming from with it, and extending further. Now you can call me a Veda Vata Rata, an armchair speculator. Alright, but we're all in our armchairs somewhere along our lives, temples or not. Everyone's got a right to their own opinion. Now you don't believe in what I'm saying, that's alright, turn me off, I don't care. But what I'm about to say further, see my tongue flicking through like that, I ain't joking, but like that. But anyway, I'm not a snake, by the way, I'm a human. But, just to let you know, have you ever thought about, in the spiritual Vaikuntha planets, was the 3/4 the size of the material nature we're in now, which is only 1/4 in size, and all the Brahmandas, we're being in one, which is called the Akasha Brahma, which is all the Brahmandas in one. In the whole material nature is 1/4 in size. The Akasha Brahma is 1/4 in size to the spiritual universe, the Vaikuntha planets is 3/4. So, how does that run and play, really, in our little worlds? I mean, people may have dreams and you might have gone there and forgot about it, and you come back and you forget all about where you've been, and you might have even gone there in your sleeps. Maybe there's designated places where we can go when we're asleep in that, if they come for Loka, we can go to, but only for the dreamers in the material nature. And they've got it also sussed out to an absolute T, which they have, right? That's what we do. Sometimes I forget all about it, some may remember. But what I'm getting at, in the Vaikuntha planets, it's called the multivarious universe. This is multiplicities as well. Multivarious multiplicities of what you can do. Unlimited. So then us, the spirit soul, the Atman Jiva, the human spirit soul, is that to say that we are now self with spiritual metamorphic and our gender change, as in we can go all male or female or mixed, like Futanari. Just like you have 4 arms in the spiritual universe with 4 weapons, being the conch, the lotus, the discus, and sometimes the sword if variegates, but all can have all 4 arms and none. You see what I mean? There's 4 arms with no weapons, or 4 arms or just 2 arms. So we can metamorphosize ourselves spiritually, formately, as we're known as a masculine male, as Vishnu, as ourselves as sons and daughters, in the Prajna expansion of what we really are, sons and daughters. And then, so that's to say that we can change in ourselves, metamorphically, like in our gender, in feel of mood, in the Vaikuntha planets, what no one's actually talking about. That makes it so great. Only 90% of the whole of the spiritual population has ever stayed in the Vaikuntha, where only 10% of us have fallen into the material nature. And you can see why, if that's a fact, in all the things and all the multiplicity and multivariousness, in service and devotion to God, still in the spiritual universe while playing all the while. But there's no marriage, you see. So regardless of your orientation of your gender and how you feel, in the spiritual Vaikuntha, no one's ever married. No one's ever in open relationships, you see. This stuff never been talked about. I mean, when you go back down in the material nature and the Krita Yuga that we're not in, it was the same. No one was married and everyone lived in open relationships. And everyone lived in a new covenant thinking of way of sexual living while raising children properly in the spiritual right conducts of life, while living adultly, spiritually amongst ourselves in open relationships properly. And it's only then the fall of the this Treta Yuga to the Dwapara Yuga to Iron Yuga, Kali that we're in now, that the form of a monogamy, marriage and monetary systems come in. So that's to say then, where we are now and all you see the movements going on in life, the gay movements and all the rest of them, isn't it really just basically because you're limited in the material nature, you can't do so much in your body? It takes longer time to reassign yourself and reassign yourself into Dwapara Yuga, time of Juna and Krishna. Juna assigned herself to a female as a gopi to Lord Krishna, then came back again as a man to continue the Kurukshetra war, which is 5,000 years ago, when sort of like the whole civilization was more advanced than what we are now. What we're coming to now is what they already were, faster past and more so. We're catching up slowly in the Kali Yuga to make this a golden age, but it'd be like a Dwapara Yuga in a heavenly household way, in our ways, you know, or your boat, land or sea, or basically, you know, merry traveller, whatever it is, how you live and reside. It's all about the freedom of ourselves in our spirituality, to be free in how we think sexually in adult behaviour. But in our way of thinking, like the spiritual universe that we come from, because it's more able to move and metamorphosize in ourselves, to change in our mood. That's probably what's going on. You could be all male, masculine, Cupid or Vishnu, and then you could be all female, Lakshmi, Pradyumna, Cupid, and then you could mix, you see, which you can't do now, because you're limited in the material nature, either born male or female. The rest then becomes a kind of mix that we can do in material nature, as she-males are, you know, or completely changing your sex, but you can't reverse, which you can't do at the moment. And it takes long, and it's more limited in its time because it's material nature, to how you feel and think in your spiritual, feeling spiritual in your orientations, you know. But it was always like that in the spiritual universe. No one talks about it, you know. The multifariousness and that you could do in the spiritual universe with us, the spiritual Atman Jiva, the spirit soul, and how we can move in our moods just at a will. And the supreme mystic abilities of place, which is the Vaikuntha planets, you could move in your mood just like that. At the moment, because you're material nature, you can't. So it's understanding these things and being more peaceful about everything, and understanding it from a spiritual point of view. What's not being actually said, I dare to say it, if it's a dare, because it's not to me, it's just like, think about it from the highest point of view. From the top down, spiritual universe, down in the material nature, I think you get a clearer idea. That's how I try and live my life most of my days, you know, from the highest spiritual point of view of thinking. There's a location and a state of mind consciously, you know, it's a state of mind of playing and way. But yeah, you know, people shouldn't be so het up about all these things, you know. As long as it's all adult and it's mutual, that's all that matters. No harm, loss or theft gone to anybody else, you know. It's just about orientation. It's also about your principalic behaviour. There's 5 covenants, I would say. You know, you've got immaculate conception, which is open and honest polyamorous relationships. Then from then falls down into Shiva, which is monogamy, marriage, then into adultery, then into vice, and then into rape and all the degradables. So that's 4 other steps fallen, one will last on the worst. But the immaculate conception, where we're coming from, and the Cupid all thinking as sons and daughters of heaven, the Pradyumna expansion, sons and daughters, the right vibe, the right vine, is where we come from. In the heavenly hosts, to understand the divisional change between one another, you know, and where we're at. That's all it is. You know, it's not a judgment or condemnation, apart from where it is condemnation, but otherwise it's understanding where we're at in the levels, and understand where we're coming from as people. That keeps our peace between each other, you know, and the continuousness of socialising and living under these secular systems that we're living in right now, that are all, you know, corrupt, you know, in their monetary systems. But that's another subject. But yes, understand where I'm coming from as a man who's twice born and thinking in the resurrectional ways. Have a good evening.